Hey guys, what's going on? So where we left off, I just finished reupholstering the headliner for the Camaro. I haven't installed it yet. We will be getting to that later on in this video, but right now it's still rainy and crappy out. So I figured we'll start out by reupholstering the sun visors as well as the sail panels. And we already went and finished the driver's side sun visor a few days ago just to figure out how the thing comes apart and what exactly needs to be done to reupholster it. And this is what I finished up with. And this is only about a half hour's worth of work. Now, what I did was, here's the passenger. I'm gonna run through this with you guys, so I only did one of them. But pretty much, this thing is a piece of cardboard. That's all it is. It's a folded over piece of cardboard that's stitched together right on that seam, and that's what hides the edge of the fabric. So all I did was literally rip all the fabric off, rip those stitches out, and unfold this thing like a book. And then from there, all I did was lay the cardboard flat on the piece of suede that I used for the headliner. And same thing, I just spray glued it in place, wrapped the edges around, and then just literally spray glued and sandwiched the thing back together. There's a couple of things that need to be done to make this fit back together like this without any stitches. The problem is I don't have, if I had a way to sew this, it would come out even nicer because instead of gluing this together, you could just stitch this all along the edge. But I think this will hold up fine. Literally half hour's worth of work. I think it looks amazing compared to what was in there. They're going to match the headliner really good. And also, if a lot of these cars, the sun visors don't stay up anymore. So you'll notice you stick it up, you're driving, either it'll come down or it'll just stay down all the time. To get around that, I am going to show you guys how to repair that because my car does the same exact thing. And that has to do with a hinge over here. If you could see... this pin here, this is supposed to be stationary, and you can see it's spinning loose. So the way to repair this is just to come in here and either JB weld this shaft back onto the body here, or drill this and put like a cotter pin or a roll pin through here. That's probably what I'm going to end up doing. It's just going to be more permanent. But once that's finished, your sun visors aren't going to be sagging anymore, and they'll be nice and clean and reupholstered as well. All right, so I got everything laid out here. We're going to be doing the passenger side sun visor as well as one of the sail panels. Getting into the sun visors, first step you're going to want to do is remove the pivot arm over here. That's simply just held in place with one Phillips head screw. That's exactly how GM did it from the factory. You kind of just see a screw right there. So we're going to take the screw out. This piece is going to slide out, and then from there, all I'm going to do is rip the material off, and then we'll fold the thing open, and I'll show you guys how to glue it to the material. One thing I just wanted to point out, the one I already did, this didn't come out 100% perfect. I kind of threw it together in like a half hour just trying to see what was going to work. But I'm very happy with the way it is, and I am going to run it. But just a couple of things that I'm going to try to revise for this one. You can see when I put it back together, it wasn't perfectly even when I sandwiched it. So there is a little bit of a lip over here, as well as on this side over here. The other thing is you could kind of see the glue line in here. I might try to hide this by maybe taping it off and spraying it with a little Duplicolor fabric dye. The other thing I was thinking about doing is seeing if I could take this down to like a dry cleaner or like an upholstery shop and see if they could just run a stitch along this for me. Because if this could just get stitched down, you'll see it'll get sandwiched together and it'll hide that seam. But let's start by tearing this thing down and getting it separated. Alright guys, so the visor is disassembled, and you can see this is all it's made up of. It's an extremely cheap and simple design. It's literally just a few pieces of cardboard. The outside piece, you can see when it's assembled, it sits like that. That's just stitched together along the edge. You pull this open, and then inside you have this thicker piece of cardboard with the actual hinge piece attached to it, and that just sits in there like that. Now I do want to say that I did mess this up. I did the same thing for the first one, and I didn't really think anything of it until now. But you can see here how I have this jagged edge. Now when I did the first one, after I pulled it apart, it came out the same way. I just came in here with scissors and just cleaned this up. But the reason this happened was because when I pulled the material off, I just, both times I just pulled it off without taking the stitches out. So you can see there's like maybe this ½ inch of cardboard that got pulled off of the board here, and that's still left inside the material. Because of that, I did have to do an extra step when I put this back together, and that was coming here and sand this board down a little bit, because with that piece missing, when this is assembled, you could kind of see this sits right at the edge, and there's no room to sandwich this back together. So all I did with the driver's side was coming here with a flap disc, and I just sanded this edge down maybe like 1/4 of an inch, and then that just allowed it to sit like that so I could reassemble it and still have a clean edge and a place to glue it. You can avoid that by just coming in here and trying to pull these stitches out, and that's going to keep the edge of the board intact. But for me, I'm just going to sand this down and do it the same way I did the first one. That came out great, so it's not going to really be a problem. The only thing in the visor is going to be maybe that much smaller than it was before, but it's really not much of an issue. Or another thing you could do, especially if this board is in shitty shape, mine's all right. I mean, it's a little broken over here, but I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Being this is just flimsy thin cardboard, you could simply put this onto another piece, maybe like a cereal box or something a little bit thicker, and just trace this and then cut it out, and then you're going to have a new sun visor piece. But moving on, next step, I'm just going to come in here with the scissors, clean this edge up, make it nice and smooth. Then I'm going to take the flap disc, take some material off of this piece, then we'll be ready to glue the backing to the material and reassemble the thing. So I just finished sanding and we are ready to glue the material on. Now before I do this, one thing I want to mention with the spray glue, because I got a couple of comments regarding headliners coming down when they use this stuff. I used this in the past and I had the same thing happen. I think when I had my Saturn I used this stuff, and I redid the headliner. I didn't fiberglass it and everything like that. After maybe like a month or so, it started coming down in a few places. Now what I didn't know at the time was when you apply this stuff, you have to wait maybe like 30 seconds to a minute. You gotta wait for it to tack up before you put the stuff together. If you just spray this on and it's not completely dry, it's not gonna stick properly and it's gonna end up coming down. So literally on the can, it tells you this as well. Just spray it on, let it dry a little bit, wait maybe a minute, and then take your finger and just tap it on the glue. No glue should come off onto your finger. If you you tap this and you see there's like a fingerprint mark, and you'll feel the glue's like really wet. It's not tacky. It's not ready yet. Let it sit a little bit longer and you could glue the two pieces together. The other thing is you're going to get better results if you glue both sides of the fabric. So like I'm doing here, I'm going to be spraying glue on the actual cardboard as well as on the fabric itself. So the way I'm going to glue this is very straightforward. I'm going to start out by doing the spine here by just spraying some glue right in the middle there, some on the back of the visor, and then we're just going to set this down right there. Once it's nice and tacky, let it sit for a second, and then I'm going to spray down the right side as well as the backing there. Fold that side over, same thing, press it down, make sure it's tacky, and then the other side, and then we're going to have the whole backing done. And from there I'll come in, trim all these edges to size, and we'll fold this over. Then we'll be ready to install the middle piece and glue both sides of that, fold the thing together, and then I'll show you guys how to go and fix the actual hinge. Alright, so I just finished getting the material glued to the back of the visor. Next step, we're going to be putting the middle section in and then folding the thing together. Now, I did go and do an extra step that I didn't do on the first one, and that was put some blue tape just around the outside edge, so when I put the glue on this, I'm not going to get as much of a messy edge all the way out to the corner, so when it's folded over, hopefully you're not going to really see it that much. But I'm going to just come in here, spray this entire thing with glue. We're going to set this guy right in the middle. You want the hole where the screw goes in to be lined in with the hole in the cardboard there. And I'm just going to set this guy down just like that. Maybe put another thing of glue here, and then we'll just fold this thing over and try to meet the edges up as neat as possible. All right, so the passenger side is all finished, and look how great these came out. I mean, for an hour's worth of work, yeah, they look absolutely amazing. And this is all leftover stuff from when I did the headliner. I didn't even have to go and buy any more material. The only thing left to do is to fix the hinges, but I have to go out and get some roll pins. So before we get to that, I'm going to take care of the sail panels. And you can see with the passenger one, by not putting the glue to the edge, it came out a little bit neater. You can kind of see the board in there if you're looking straight on. You can hide that a little bit if you just spray a little flat black paint on there before you sandwich the thing together. So being these guys are pretty much good to go, next step, I'm going to go do the sail panel, go pick up some roll pins, and then we're going to install all the stuff in the car, including the headliner. Sail panels, I'm not going to really get into it. I'm just going to kind of time lapse it. It's extremely straightforward. Pretty much just like everything else was. You're ripping off the old material and just gluing the new stuff on. This is particularly simple just because we're ripping this off, and then it's a plastic backing. So all we got to literally do is just spray some glue on it, stick it on here, and then we're just going to fold the edges over. So here's everything finished up. The sail panels pretty much went together without a hitch. Only thing on the driver's side, I ran out of material, so I just kind of went in here and fudged it and added a little bit on the corner, but I just needed like that much more on the piece of fabric I was using. So right now we're gonna go pull the headliner out and install the nice new Alcantara suede headliner. In order to do this, you're first gonna have to remove your sun visors. As you know, I already went ahead and did that. Other thing is there are 3 clips. If you saw when I redid the headliner board, there are 3 clips holding this up. All of mine are broken. That's another reason why I didn't want to reuse this headliner. I'm just going to come in here, remove my GoPro mount, pull all the foam off of here. Then the dome light's going to have to come off. This is just cover just pops right off, and then there are 2 Phillips head screws in there. And lastly, you're going to want to take the trim off. These 2 pieces have a bunch of clips running up through here. All of mine are broken. Not only the actual clips, but the where they actually connect to on the trim is just broken off. So I have a screw just driven right through there, holding this side up. The other side's a little bit better, but same thing, all the clips are broken. So I do have to track down a new set of these. So I'm just gonna remove the screw, pop both sides off, probably leave them on the front there and just kind of have them still clipped in here, being I have the gauges over there, and just unclip them and have them hang down towards the back, just so I can slip the headliner out. And then lastly, there's this piece of trim back here. And then if you didn't remove your sail panels, you're gonna have to separate the tops of the plastic trim. You can see there's a hole right there that secures the sail panel in, and that's a really long screw that goes all the way through to the body and holds that plastic against the body. So that screw has to come out on both sides, and then there's another one up here towards the top. So we're going to be removing that as well. I don't know if I have to actually pull these whole pieces out. It's been a while since I had this headliner out. I'm hoping I could squeeze it through, but the new headliner is definitely a lot more rigid than this one, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to get away with that. But the plan is just simply to pull it right out the back over the cage, and then hopefully we can just slip the new one in. All right, so the old one's out. A couple of extra steps I had to do was remove the 2 trim pieces over here that connect into the side of the plastics, and I just kind of pulled them down past the support shock there for the hatch glass, just to give me enough room to get the thing out. The problem I was having, being the cage is in there, you kind of got to slide this out, and it kept getting caught on the 2 bolts here for the hatch glass on both sides. So after I pulled it out, I went and pulled the side pieces down a little more. I'm hoping that this is going to slide in without damaging that backing really bad. You see with the old one out how bad it was actually sagging. And this is what I was mentioning when I redid the new one. When you pull this off like this, you kind of get the fabric off and you're left with the backing pretty much intact. Then you can just kind of come in here and just strip this off like this, and you don't do as much damage to the backing. All right, so the headliner is in, and boy did it put up a fight. It came to a point where I really thought it wasn't going to actually fit, because the biggest thing was it kept getting stuck on the two studs for the hatch. And then aside from that, it was just really stiff compared to the old one. So it was quite a challenge trying to get it over the bar here without like completely destroying the thing. But once I got it, I just kind of eased it in a little at a time, pressed down the back to clear it past the bottom studs, and I just went in little by little till I got it far enough I could fish the dome light wires through, and then I just pulled it forward. It all clipped in. Everything fits very nicely. I was kind of concerned that the pieces where the seat belts weren't going to fit perfectly, because those are really stiff now with all the fiberglass on there to fill the seatbelt hole. But those actually lined up really nice. And I'm glad I decided to use the same material for the sail panels, because I really like how it's just kind of a smooth transition, and it blends right into the sail panel. That looks really good. And as far as securing these, it has those 3 tabs that kind of slip into the back of the plastic, and then the top is held in place with a really long Phillips head screw. All right guys, so for the last step, we're going to be installing the sun visors. Now I already went ahead and took care of the hinges. I got them all painted up, but I am going to show you what exactly I did here. Now I didn't go out and get roll pins. I ended up just being lazy, and I used a couple of screws that I had laying around. Now if you remember in the beginning of the video, this rod here was spinning freely inside the housing over here. And pretty much, I think from the factory, this thing is just kind of pressed in there, and over time it wears out, and then it starts spinning freely inside that housing there, and then that's what causes the visors not to stay up. Because most of the visors are actually installed, they have this like little kind of bushing in here, so that slides into there, and then a screw, you can see I made a little hole in here, a little cut. A Phillips screw goes in there like this, and that's what actually clamps the sun visor down onto that pin. But if that pin's broken loose inside of there, the thing's just going to keep moving, and the visor's not going to stay up. So to get around that, a couple of ways you could fix this. One thing being JB weld. If yours is loose enough like mine, you can actually pull this pin out of the housing, and from there you could just go in with some JB weld, fill it up, and just drop the pin in there, clean off the excess, let it dry. You'll probably be good to go. What I decided to do was make a little hole with the drill. You can see where that little that point right there is. I just made a hole with the drill. I went through the housing, through the pin, and then instead of using a roll pin, I used a couple of really tiny Phillips head screws. They're relatively soft screws too, so I screwed them in there pretty much until they broke. They were self-tapping screws, so once they snapped off, I went in there with the flap disc and just smoothed down the top like that, and now this thing is locked in there. It's not going anywhere. And the place where I made the hole, whether you're doing it this way or using roll pins or whatever, if you're going to drill it, the way I did it was I put it so it's in the back. So like this is the passenger side. When this is installed, it's going to be like that. So the part with the screw showing is going to be facing the windshield. All right, now I'm going to get these guys assembled, hook the hinges up to the visors. Then we're going to go put them in the car, and we'll wrap this video up. Alright guys, so the visors are finished and installed, and take a look at how awesome this looks. So here they are, and I gotta say, they came out amazing. I mean, they feel so much better than they did before. as far as like quality, they're thicker. They don't feel like flimsy cardboard. That's probably mostly because all the material was it was really thin because all of the foam kind of fell apart and was just sitting in the bottom. And the hinge is working beautifully. I mean, it's nice and tight. You're not going to have to worry about them coming down while you're driving anymore. But I mean, as nice as these came out, I think the thing I'm most happy with is the headliner. Just, you know, having the black liner over the gray one and this faux suede Alcantara material, it just makes the car look so much more upscale. It really reminds me of like a Z01 or like a newer 6th gen where you have that Alcantara like on the dash and on the steering wheel. It just looks so much more premium, and I am very, very happy with the way this came out. I do have to get new pillar trim pieces here, and there's some stuff I want to do on the dash, but next thing I'm probably going to be doing is the radio. I want to change the speakers out and finally hook my radio back up, because I used to have an amp and sub in the back. I pulled that stuff out when I put the blower on just to try to save some weight. So the radio isn't actually hooked up to the speakers directly anymore because I pulled all the RCAs out. So I got to pull the radio out and run new wires to all 4 speakers. So I might do that in an upcoming video, just to show you guys how to switch out the speakers in the dash, because the ones in the back are already good. I just want to change the front ones out, put a little better ones in there. And then probably somewhere in there, before we get into more of the interior stuff, I'm just going to go through like a walkthrough video of what everything costs. I know a lot of you guys are looking to do this to your cars, so I'm going to try to generate a list of everything I used and everything that you kind of do a little bit cheaper. So if you want to try to like budget it and do it a little bit cheaper than how I did my exact setup, you can do that. So I am going to work on that video. That's probably going to be, if not the next one coming out, the one right after my next one, because I am going to start tackling the speakers actually right now. So that's probably going to be the next video you guys are going to see. But if you want to do this to your headliner, be sure to look in the description. I'm going to link the material I used again like I did in my last one. As far as the sun visors are concerned, there's really nothing I needed. I used the exact same spray glue and the exact same material. All I had to really do was fix the hinge and put a couple of screws in there to keep them from sagging down anymore. But that was really it. I mean, everything I did with the sun visors and the sail panels was all left over from the headliner. So all in all, for this whole interior, as far as the headliner is concerned, the 2 visors, the headliner, and the sail panels, it only cost me $60 worth of material. Also, if you don't follow me on Instagram, link is going to be in the description as always. I know I say this every video, but I'm always posting pictures of the car as I'm working on it. I have a lot of pictures of the headliner when I was putting it together before I actually finished the other video, as well as the visors. I have pictures of those on there before this video actually came out, and the way they came out. So definitely go check that out. But for now, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.